Through the Noise with your host, Ernesto Glucksmann.
RJ, thanks for joining me on the show. When we're recording these, I keep mentioning this, but you don't get the fancy intro music. But when you hear this recorded published, you'll get that part. That'll make it feel real. RJ, thanks for joining me. You're the managing director at Emerald Branch. RJ Bianculli, thanks for swinging by. I got tuned into your company that makes. How do you describe the company? Because I just uses plant-based products to make interesting products, plant-based sources of material, right? How do you describe it?
Yeah, we the center of our model is essentially building everyday disposable products like paper towels, toilet paper, cups, plates, napkins, everything that almost every consumer uses every day, but making them essentially not from trees and not from plastic. So using what we call alternative materials that are rapidly renewable and that are typically thrown away or burned as waste products. And instead of throwing away or burning them, we capture them, and it goes through a specific process depending on the item, and we turn them into, your everyday disposables, but we don't use trees and we don't use plastic.
And I guess that kind of dovetails into your tagline there, making responsible choices possible, right? Because you have a whole slew of products that, what are we talking about? Like paper towels, plastic forks. Are they really paper towels? They're not paper necessarily. They're made out of, what are they made out of?
So the basis of what we use is we use the fibrous stalk of a crop after it's grown. So if you look at things like wheat or sugar or corn, right? A lot of people don't realize this, particularly the average consumer, but the majority of the weight of those crops when they're grown is not the actual crop itself. It's not the sugar or the corn or the wheat. It's actually the fibrous stalk, the byproduct that's left over. That makes up, depending on the crop, up to 90% of the weight. And believe it or not, there's really very little use, or has been very little use, for that waste product in the past. Some farmers and some co-ops use it. They burn it for fuel or ethanol production or things like that, but a very small percentage of that. And people say, well, why can't you use it all for fuel? And it's, effective, but it's it's not cost effective to transport. So unless you're using it on site, it really becomes not cost effective because of transportation costs and logistical costs and things like that. And there's so much of this material, and I can talk about some places I've been around the country where I've seen football fields high of this waste product, this fibrous waste product, and it's not being used. So we capture that again, and we take that material, instead of cutting down a tree or using petroleum-based plastic, to make and extrude finished goods.
Man, there's so many questions to go into. How long did you start the business? It's a family-run business, right?
Yeah, we are family owned, 100% family owned and run. My father started a company, believe it or not, almost 25 years ago, late 1996 into 97. And it's a crazy story. But he was in the paper business for some time. He started his career actually running, at the time, was one of the largest food service operations in the country in the 1980s, which was, believe it or not, the horse racing tracks for Aramar. And this was Belmont, where they have the Belmont Stakes, and Aqueduct and a very famous racetrack, which is actually they're running up there now, is in Saratoga. So he was responsible at a very young age for running those food service operations. He had, I think, 450 employees, most of them union. And he learned kind of, the disposable world and consumable world from that. He got into the distribution business in the late 80s. Became very successful, became a senior partner in a very sizable distribution company that just basically resold boxes and cups and plates. And at the time, the majority of what they were selling was foam, was plastic, all tree-based. There wasn't really this environmental movement. And my father and his partners sold that company, and they did very, very well from it, to a company called Unisource, which is one of the largest distribution companies, believe it or not, in the world. They're known today as Veritiv. I believe they're publicly traded. Very, very good company, purchased his company. And then at the time, they were then acquired by Georgia Pacific, one of the largest paper and plastic manufacturers in the world. So my dad cut his teeth there. He became an executive was senior vice president at Georgia Pacific, spent several years there. And what happened was
got to see scale, right? Kind of companies of massive scale. That's just sometimes hard to imagine if you're not in that type of business, right?
Massive scale. And I mean, they're one of the largest producers of paper and plastic in the world. They also control their entire supply chain to some degree, from forestry to meaning their pulp, their raw material, to parent rolls, to converting to finished goods. And you see many of their products all over the world. Really is a really well-run company. But what, he learned scale from there. He learned a lot of different things. One of the things he learned was how many trees we're cutting down and how much petroleum we're using in disposables. And my brother, who was born in 94, he just turned 26. He was born right when my father was, I believe at the time, being acquired by, I think it was Unisource. And a couple of months old, he had a very bad reaction to a vaccination. I remember, like it was yesterday. I was only 5 or 6, but he came home. He had a super high fever, and the next day he had a seizure, like an epileptic.
Sorry to hear that.
Seizure. And 3-4 months later, he was having, I think he was getting up to several hundred seizures a day. I know he was at one point having 300 seizures a day. And basically permanently damaged. They found out he had 10 times the amount of mercury or thimerosal in his brain and the average adult had. Serious, it just caused, the epilepsy, the issues he had caused serious cognitive, disabilities. He had a lot of issues. And unfortunately, it had a permanent effect on him. And, this was before like Google and, before you had the internet, really. This was in the mid 90s. So I remember we were going to all these hospitals and they were giving him all this treatment and this it was a really hard time for my family, really hard time. God bless my parents. They're so strong. And I think it made our family stronger, and my brother's such a blessing in so many ways. And really, he was the inspiration for starting our company, because my dad started and my mom started looking into like what was going into these at the time, at these vaccinations. I mean, who knew what thimerosal was and mercury, right? And now you have this situation where they're doing all this extensive research, going to all these hospitals. And it kind of spilled over into my dad's career, where he started looking into what we were putting into disposable products that we were putting in our mouth, straws, cups, napkins, toilet paper that we're touching our bodies with every day. And he discovered some pretty alarming things. And, not only is deforestation a serious problem, not only are petroleum-based plastics and petroleum in general a serious problem and contributor to carbon and emissions and climate change and GHGs and things like that, but that no one really thought of this at the time, and even to some degree today. But the health and wellness effects of these products, like what are they bleached with? What makes these products white? What is BPA, bisphenol A? It's becoming a pretty hot topic today, and has been over the past couple of years.
How does heat degrade some of the products? I remember back in the 90s, you just throw everything into the microwave, right? Whatever container you could get, it's fine, But now we know that heat does decompose some of the petroleum-based products that are out there, right? So, yeah. So your dad, the experience with your brother, and not knowing what was in some of the products made him more tuned into the product process itself. It wasn't as focused on like how many forks we could make. Well, how do we actually make these forks, and are they being done in a more, are they being done in a healthy way, a sustainable way? So it just opened his mind up to asking about those questions.
Exactly. And he made a decision to leave and self-fund, our group in 96 into 97. And that's really how we got started, from essentially, I want to say nothing, but really also having a foundation in the industry. So really understanding and knowing the industry, but then realizing that trees and plastic and all these chemicals are not the future of the industry. But he realized that so long ago, 20 plus years ago.
Right. Did he have some sense that there were buyers out there to start a business like this? I mean, presumably you sort of do, or you try. Well, I don't know. I started my business at 27 thinking I knew everything about business. I did not. I did not. And you should focus on your customer base first and see if they have enough pain or need to be able to solve and your abilities to be able to help and solve them, right? That's sort of fundamental. But I think many people start businesses probably just looking at, well, I'm pretty skilled at this thing. I should be able to just, take my own destiny, right? But I figure your dad probably be a little bit more sophisticated given his experience at scale and his career trajectory. But I'm curious to know, did he have some sense that there was going to be a bigger customer base eventually for these types of products?
Eventually, yes, but at the time, yeah, no one was educated. Nobody really knew. And when I say educated, no one was educated in the realm of what he was trying to do, because people didn't know. And so no, people thought he was crazy. They were like, you're wasting you're putting capital in. It's 1% of people
Why am I
care.
going to pay more for your wheat stock fork that you're trying to make than the super optimized, super scaled, super inexpensive fork here? Like, you're never going to find buyers for this stuff, probably.
Yep. And at the time, quite honestly, the quality of those products sucked. It was terrible. I mean, there was no real capital investment in building the infrastructure and the technology behind creating alternative products like we have that were cost effective and that had the same or better quality, and that had a mission and message behind it. And it took us years, decades, millions and millions of dollars to do that. It didn't just happen. People think it just, they go, wow, how did you guys come up with this? Is like so robust and incredible and unique. And I laugh and I'm like, yeah, we were an overnight success, 22 years in the making. And that's really the truth. I mean, this was years.
Where did you guys start with like sourcing the materials? I mean, because your company makes these products, right? So you got to get a good flow of the wheat or whatever you're using, right? Like, how did your dad start that?
Well, I'll give you a hint. At the time in the late 90s, early 2000s, when we really started looking into tree-free technology, because we started just making products that were recycled fiber, but we were investing in R&D. When I say we, I wasn't involved in the company at the time, but the company, in research and development into these alternatives. And I could give you one guess where we found the infrastructure and raw materials to start manufacturing them. And it's not here in this country. It's somewhere overseas. And it was in China. And we learned a lot over there. My father actually went there, created a lot of relationships there. And we were one of the first people to start producing this category overseas. But we also realized that they were making these products from alternative materials. And we worked with partners there, and we had agreements there where we were perfecting the blends, we were perfecting the finished goods, the quality. And it was very, it was very time consuming, very time consuming. That's where we started.
Was it because if you're going to start a new product class with new source materials, you probably want to go where it's probably least expensive to get the raw material in bulk processed. So maybe overseas is probably where he found that, right?
People think expensive, but I'm going to tell you, in manufacturing, it's not always just about the economics. It's about the infrastructure, the tooling, the machinery, the pulping machines. We didn't have now where we are today. We're the largest producer of tree-free tissue product in the United States. But 20 years ago, this country didn't have the infrastructure to do that. The Chinese did. And they were way ahead of us. And they were really producing out of these materials because it was more economical for them to produce these materials because there was such an abundance of material. So yes, you're right. It was economical. There was an abundance of material, but they also hadn't built the infrastructure to take this material.
And that's the key point, right? The infrastructure didn't exist here, so it'd be way more expensive to get it going here because you're literally you're not just, you have to have the infrastructure where you can get the raw material so that you can begin your stage of the product creation process. And if you have to do that from scratch in your own country, then you're going to look for sources where they're already doing it. It makes perfect sense to me. I mean, where are you today? Just out of curiosity, are we I presume we're better off in the sense that there's probably more machines being built and done here in the US.
We're better off in a lot of ways right now in terms of manufacturing and production here in the USA. I'll tell you, the reason why we're able to produce here in the USA is because, remember, we had to build a market for this mission that we built.
That's true too. Educate the marketplace. Ooh.
You can't just go in with like this product, oh, it's tree free, and all of a sudden, you have 100 million buyers that are buying it. It wasn't how it went. And what we did was we really built a very strong grassroots mission behind our program. And we started in the B2B space, and we went to the major users, and we went to folks that we had been doing business with or knew, and organizations, great organizations, major Fortune 1000 companies like Citibank, working, with groups like that, and American Express, and some major companies. And we presented this program that we built, and they were blown away. And in fact, one of the big banks was the first to do this nationally. I remember it was when I first started maybe 12 years ago. And they, I first realized we had something unique when I was 20 years old and went to a Fortune 500 institution and presented what we had and they said, great, we're going to do it. Let's get started. And I was like, wow, now I knew at that point that the company had built an infrastructure that was really a mission and a message that was ready to do. But we built a lot of tools around it. It wasn't just the products and the technology. We built environmental impact statements, so algorithms that show these companies, if you're going to use 10,000 cases of compostable forks or tree-free napkins, here's how many pounds of plastic you're going to save. Here's how many trees you're going to save. Here's how many gallons of water you're going to save in the production process. Here's how we're going to help communicate this out to your clients and your employees when they're eating every day from our products.
So they're paying a premium, but they're paying a premium for that data as well as the product that they're getting. So they can go back to their employee bases or their customers and say, hey, they can put a little sign, we're using this new product that has saved X number of trees or excessive energy uses or whatever it is. That you have to provide that as the creator of these products to the customer base. And that's probably what drew them to purchase it, right? To be able to tell that story.
Yes.
Okay.
And our product is not always at a premium. It depends who we're replacing. If they're using foam, which God knows is being outlawed now in so many states, municipalities, and countries, they're going to pay more, right? But the consumer, to what we discussed earlier, is educated now. So they look at foam and they go, expanded polystyrene. I can't recycle this. It doesn't degrade. It has all these chemicals and it phthalates and all the. I don't want to use this. I mean, I don't want to eat out of this. So they're okay. Consumers have become okay with saying, you know what, this sandwich in this container cost me $7.20, but now I'm going to use a petroleum-free, tree-free container that has no contaminants, and now it's going to cost me $7.39. But I'm okay with that because I'm conscious of my health, and I'm conscious of and that's what's changed over the last couple of decades.
Yeah. And so but that's the down the line, that's the vision for your dad and your family. We're, hoping that would be the future. In the beginning stages, those big first orders with those a big bank or a big group, that gives you cash back to then reinvest in improving the product line, improving the machinery, whatever it is. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to convert some of this stuff into, like, what's the difference in type of pulping machine you might need? That's the more conventional stuff.
My sister, who's brilliant, really, she's brilliant, and she kind of runs she's the R&D, manufacturing, logistics, technology, super brilliant. Worked with creating tree-free packaging board, which we actually just launched with Lauren Conrad, who's a very famous celebrity. We just launched yesterday with her new beauty line. We're doing all of their boxes and packaging, her lipstick, things like that. I mean, my sister really built a lot of that infrastructure and processes, and with her team, really created this. But and I was just at one of our factories a couple of weeks back. Our pulp is unique. It's interesting. It's a shorter fiber than traditional virgin. tree-based pulp, but it does run. We blend it depending on what we're running. We can blend it with bamboo. We can blend it with. In some points, we need to blend it with with a percentage of virgin fiber. But if we do that, it actually can run through a lot of the machinery that's converting traditional tree-based fiber.
Okay.
So there are some. Go ahead.
Sorry, you make it a little tougher or stronger for it to actually go through the same machines by doing a little bit of a blend or mixing it with like.
For lack of a better term, yes.
Okay.
You make it a little more.
We're not the R&D experts here, but to summarize it, okay.
It also a lot has to do with weight. So our material, you have different, weights of paper, right? And depending on the weight of the paper, it determines the softness, but if you have different length fibers, you may need a heavier paper. So there's things that we had to tweak over the years, which was, it sounds easy, but it's not easy, not easy at all. But we did it. And now we're producing the vast majority of our towel and tissue products, everything from toilet paper to hand towels to napkins to paper towels, are being produced here in the USA. And so we're the largest producer of tree-free pulp in towel and tissue right now in the USA, and we intend to continue to do that. And the quality of our products is really very good. You can't even tell the difference. The messaging is fantastic. The price points are right. So when you say premium, when our products go up against national brands, whether it's in the retail space or whether it's in the business-to-business space, when it comes to towel and tissue, we're at or below what national brands are.
Really?
The consumer does not have to pay more for those products. Some of our products are a little more expensive, like our fully compostable heavyweight cutlery, but it also weighs 30% heavier than your traditional plastic, right? So there's checks and balances in our programs where when we go to companies and they say, wow, we they don't say to us, we just want to use your tree-free Seafold towel. They want a program. And so some of our products may be a little bit more. Some of our products may be a little bit less. Some of our products are going to be cost neutral. But our goal overall is not to have the client spend a premium. That's what our goal is.
Do you, but over time, you keep improving the product class, you keep tweaking the characteristics of this new material and finding out better ways you can make something maybe lighter, tougher, whatever it is that you're aiming for. How do you, when you're creating that program, how do you figure out, like, where are we close to being very competitive with the, what did you call it? The materials that are made from trees and petroleum based. I mean, is there a term for the kind of
just
the
traditional, your traditional virgin recycled fibers and your traditional petroleum based plastics? Do you mean economically, or do you mean more from like quality?
Just from a quality, or just from how do you edge out your program so it becomes more attractive to use this product versus the stuff that's been made as cheaply, as quickly, at a price point, at a scale price point? I mean, let's face it, they've been making plastic for a long time. So they've gotten pretty good at optimizing for the cheapest amount that they can create, right? So you've got to be competitive in a slightly different way, perhaps, to get your program accepted.
It's a good question. Really is a good question. And the first thing we do is you got to find who values what you're doing. Okay. We're not going to, forgive the term, but like a low end deli and saying, hey, we've got these, these great technologies, great products.
You'll get to them in 20 years from now, but not now. Right. Okay.
When the laws change, we'll get to them. But we are going to that Fortune 500 institute or that university or that cruise line, like we just signed Richard Branson's cruise line, Virgin. God willing, they'll be back sailing in the next, 3 to 4 months. But these organizations we work with, even in the retail side, working with major distribution groups like UNFI. We're launching with a big 3 drug chain in October in 2,600 stores. These are folks that they're consumers, they're customers, whether they're an end user, whether they're a retailer, whether they're a distributor. Their users, their customers value what we've built. And that's who we want as our customers. We don't want customers that are just going to look at this and go, it's a commodity, I don't care. We want customers that say, this mission is, we're behind this. We want our customers to know we're behind it. And we want to educate, we want Emerald to help educate our consumers on it. That's the key. It's not trying to fit a circle into a square. It's saying, what did we have? What do we build? And who values it? And that's where it starts. And then after that is the E word, education. Then we have to educate.
What's possible? What are the product lines that make the most sense for them? What's going to be attractive to their customers? What's got the biggest bang for the buck in a sense? What's got the
why should their customers care about this? How do we educate their consumers? We built a team. It's called the Eco Squad. It's like Best Buy's Geek Squad, except we specialize in sustainability. Geek Squad specializes in software and hardware, but it's the same concept. You go to Best Buy and you're like, I don't know what software, I don't know and you have a specialist that comes and helps and educates you. Well, we built that Eco Squad, and that Eco Squad is responsible. And now we're doing a lot of WebEx learning and things like that. But pre-COVID, and it will continue once things loosen up, whatever that may be. We were on site at universities at our Fortune 500 clients on a monthly basis for Earth Week, for America Recycles Day. We were educating. We were showing them the 30 products that they're using and saying, hey, did you know this is not made out of plastic? Did you know this is not from trees? Did you know there's no bleach in here? Those are things that we did from a grassroots perspective for years, and continue to do that. And there's such value in that because we're educating every one of those consumers that's using the product.
They become your marketplace advocates, or you
Right.
hope they become that. Like they'll go to another group, they'll be hired somewhere, and they'll wonder why does their office cafeteria not use the same stuff that they were using at the school, right?
Yeah.
But you want them to be able to speak somewhat intelligently about what is the difference. So thus the education program for you guys.
There you go. Boom.
Man, that's a lot of moving parts to think about as a business, right? Because you're educating, you're doing a lot of the communications, but you're also creating products, but you're also looking for probably who else has a novel blend on a new product concept that might be maybe not, working with you guys directly, but is there techniques out there that you would want to roll into the product? Because you offer, how many products do you guys offer now on just sort of a general
almost actually plus 300 plus SKUs.
Wow.
Finished goods.
That you're making me nervous just wondering how you track all that.
Yeah, well, it's not. Look, everything I talked about, and this is reality. It's semi-easy to talk about and create in a plan. It's very hard to execute. But the difference between us and I think some other companies out there is, we're very entrepreneurial minded, from the top of the organization, from my father, who's the chairman, down. And we're innovators and we execute. And that's what we were able to do. And we're going to continue to do that. And whether you're talking about building that business model and starting in the late 90s to what it is today, or even when you talk about when this COVID tragedy, hit in February and March, and being able to I hate the term pivot, it's so overused, but really pivot, but not just think on your feet and come up with a strategy, but actually execute that strategy. And that's going to be the difference between companies that thrive and survive this and companies that don't.
Right. Hopefully we are going to exit this soon. I keep looking at the progress on the vaccines, and, I try, you can get dark if you think about how many diseases never get a vaccine. If you think about it in those terms. On the other hand, there's never been a global, disease that the entire world has invested itself into figuring out an exit strategy fast. So there are just differences in all of that. So that gives me some hope that we're not all going to be stuck behind Zoom conferences forever. But what are you doing, I guess, in the meantime with your business? Like, where is there still growth and interest in, I presume a lot of people that listen to the show are in the association space and they've had to cancel events left and right. So the one-time use products that they would use at their events, they're just sort of sitting probably in warehouses at the moment.
Sure. That's right.
So where are you guys looking right now for potential?
Well, I tell you, we're very lucky to be a diversified company. And when I say the 300 SKUs, we're pretty blessed that we have, we make cleaning products and, We also own a distribution group that has a Jansan division. So I'll tell you, in retail, and we were in retail to some degree. We had invested money into it over the last couple of years. It exploded for us over the last 6 months. Absolutely exploded. In some of the biggest chains in the country, Whole Foods, Wake Ferns. We're in 19 UNFI distribution centers. We're in major stores like Publix and things like that.
For packaging
And
of these things?
Finished goods on the shelf. So paper towels, facial tissue, retail packed tree-free plates and bowls,
Oh,
napkins, toilet paper. Whew, toilet paper.
well,
We're making a lot of toilet paper.
there were a lot of people willing to buy toilet paper, and it didn't matter what. So they just, do you have any? Great, I'll buy some from. Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wow.
So we've been very lucky there. Very lucky in the cleaning side. Our food service division is taking a tough hit, no question about it. If we were just a food service company, it would be very difficult. But we're very fortunate that we're diversified enough. Our packaging division, we're still launching now with consumer brands. E-commerce is growing at crazy rates. Amazon's revenue is up 14% in a quarter. So it's a good thing for us, and thank God we're diversified. But I do believe that our food service division, because if you look at the statistics, plastic usage in consumer packaging is up 200% in food service packaging. Plastic usage.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have like a serious plastic waste problem over the next 12 months. It was already bad. I believe that we're positioned really well, and we will, as some of our business in the B2B world comes back, to capture, because everything's going to be prepackaged. Everything's going to be safety. They're going to have individually wrapped cutlery. They're going to have napkins and containers, and that will bode well for us. And more importantly, we're not using plastic in our products. So we think we have a really strong story, and really, we're positioned well as things start to come back.
Yeah, I just noticed in my own home, we were, we're like, okay, we probably shouldn't be going into stores for groceries. We would always bring our bags and try to not use plastic bags or disposable bags. But then when we were like, we probably shouldn't be more people out and about in grocery stores with the potential of being, spreading whatever it is. So, okay, we'll just order, delivery. And of course, with that comes with the 30 bags of plastic disposable bags that just get, just used once. And then you're just like, okay, now we have to take this.
You can't even recycle those.
So you can't, not easily, right? They used to have at the grocery stores, you put them somewhere, but you can't put them in the recycling bin because that gunks up the material's too loose. It gunks up at the recycling centers. It's a problem for them. Right. So it's just a ton of inconveniences that are just associated. And I just imagine, I was like, wow, that's just us. This is probably across the country, the world is just exploding, right? Do you guys have some container, non-plastic bags that do you guys make it? Like
we've been testing using our tree-free material technology and takeout bags. But they're a little bit more high end. So for some of the higher end retailers, maybe 100% free. So really in the commodity space of like it's not a space we really want to get into.
Right.
But I tell you, I hope somebody else does. I think reusable bags are a great way to go in that space, especially if you're going back and forth to the store and you bring your own bag. But it's interesting. People focus so much on the bags, or they're focusing so much on the straws, which I get. Remember that was a whole movement with the straws.
Yeah.
And big problem. Don't get me wrong, but it's a microcosm.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, it's what people are exposed to, right? It's not, they don't really think, right. No one really thinks about what does it take when you have your big conference at the Hilton or wherever, how all the cutlery got to that place, or all the material that goes into, I don't know, for a hospital, just dealing with hospital stuff right now, the amount of stuff that they have to go through and dispose of immediately at the moment, right? No one contemplates that unless you're in that business. And that's when you realize, wow, it's just a lot. It's a unimaginable amounts of quantity of raw material gets thrown out for one-time uses, right? Let me ask you this. We came across your company and it definitely got my attention right off the bat, just on the number and the variety of products. But we were looking at the Plant-Based Products Council, and you guys were
Yeah.
a member there. So, and that's a new group, right? Started by the Corn Association.
Yeah.
And they started that like maybe 2 years ago. I had executive director on the show maybe once or twice, a couple times. How's that
Yeah.
been? Because I kind of look at that as like, oh, this is I'm witnessing the startup of an association.
Yeah, and Jacqueline's a little bit more, my sister's a little bit more involved than I am. I believe she sits on the board of the organization. But the premise, and I was on several calls with them, is to basically bring together different parts of the supply chain as it surrounds essentially plant-based materials, and creating an environment where we can help scale that technology and use for plant-based materials. And it really starts with the farmers, because as we know, farmers in our country have been struggling for many, many years. They're getting heavily subsidized now by the government. They have been, quite honestly, for years. It's been a real struggle. And one of the things that we talk about in the Plant-Based Product Council, and honestly fits right in with our business model, and a lot of people don't realize this unless we educate, we're educating them, is that we're actually supporting farmers. People don't realize that, because farmers have this waste product, right? This byproduct of this material that we talked about, and it's costing them right now to throw away, to burn. They don't know what to do with it. They don't know what to do with it.
They give away hay, right? They just give it away just to get it off
Right.
their, they're just looking for
Right.
anybody to take a bale of this stuff at the end of the season, right?
That's what I'm saying. So like the Plant-Based Products Council, right now, you're putting together different parts of the supply channel, groups like us who are tied in with farming cooperatives, and groups like us. And this is just an example. Could say, hey, wait, we could take some of your offtake. Like, yeah, you have 20,000 tons worth of this material, and we'll pay you for it. You're going to get money from this. It's a new form of revenue. And so at its core, the Plant-Based Products Council is really supporting two things: supporting farmers, and then it's supporting alternative ways of bringing to market, and to some degree lobbying the fact that, hey, we can make products cleaner, greener, more sustainable, more effectively, more efficiently, and support American farmers by doing so. And to me, that's what the PBPC really is about. It's connecting those dots.
And they're advocating for basically more infrastructure to support this. So you need better places to store it. Can you get the state or maybe even the federal government to help create those off ramps, instead of just letting some of this stuff go back into a field, or I don't know what they do with it, to amass it so that a company like yours knows that there's a steady source of this stock material that you can buy in a consistent manner, that you don't have to go and make contracts with individuals, but that there's one location. And I can only imagine that that's the discussions you guys are trying to figure out how to best do this. But you're hanging out with other competitors too, right? There are other
To some degree. I think there's a couple of other competitors on there. I think, but at the end of the day, look, we're in such an emerging market. There's so much upside in the market. There's enough room for a couple of players. We want to be the leader. We want to be the ultimate player. We want to be, when we were, the first made in USA player that's going to scale that. But we're also not greedy. And at the end of the day, we have a mission behind us, and we'll all be able to make a profit and do well while doing something great and doing something good. And that's what is so exciting.
And I presume that also it's useful to you guys if you can spread some of the education process out a little bit more, right? So you can share what has been useful techniques or the right stories that seem to resonate with your other competitors when they're going out to do selling on the concept or educating about the products that exist in this space. I mean, I think part of it really is consumers slowly figuring out that there actually exist alternatives at this point, right? This isn't 10, 20 years ago where you just like, okay, I would like to do that, but I go to the grocery store and I can't really buy, an alternative set of plastic forks or whatever, because just there wasn't any, right?
Yes, and now I think these major corporations and this particular drug chain, who I can't announce yet, but we're going to be launching with, they're creating a whole section. They're creating a whole
Oh,
section
really?
of
Wow.
our products and others that is going to be a health and wellness section, and they're offering their consumers, and there's a reason they're doing that. And it surrounds, being innovative, and it surrounds the demand. And what that's telling me is consumers are demanding it, and that's the key.
Yeah, they
Consumers
don't
are
give
demanding
shelf they don't
it.
give shelf space for no reason, right?
Right.
They
Exactly.
they've done
I
their
wish they did,
research.
but they
They've done their
don't.
research, and they think that they know that they could get more buyers if there was a consistent spot in a store that had all those
Yeah.
products. And then, you know what? That feeds into like the convenience lazy factor. If I go to that section and I just grab products from that, I know that I'm helping the product class that I think is better for our country and the environment and so forth. And so therefore, I don't have to think about it anymore. Just go to that section, grab the stuff, and
Right.
roll. Right.
Exactly. That's a great point. They're making it accessible. Yes.
Wow, RJ, thanks so much, man. That was nearly an hour. We just kind of blew through this. And I just I commend you for it. The work that your dad had the vision for it. I think that this is kind of an exciting time for this type of products, and it's good to hear the stories that people are buying. That there is it's not just like a novel thing or a do-gooder thing. It's like, no, there's a demand for it. There's some business to be made here, and if you're going to miss out if you're not part of the game, as
correct.
clearly the case. I know you don't necessarily want new competitors in your space, but on the other hand, if it grows the pie for everybody, fine, bring them on. I'm sure you guys will do.
You know what? It's good. And at the end of the day, I'm a capitalist. We're capitalists, and it's good, and it's going to drive competition. It's going to drive innovation, and that's what capitalism is. So we welcome it, and I think it's going to make us better every day, and we're working every day. So
RJ, let's do this again. I want to hear again next time, you guys. Maybe after we're out of exit this craziness about COVID. Be nice to hear how you transition back into the new version of post-COVID world that we're going to be in. Let's do this again. Thanks so much,
awesome.
RJ.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
For more episodes of Through the Noise, go to throughthenoise.us.